If you are interested in astronomy and often watch movies about space, then you probably know the most important question that bothers enthusiasts of this topic. Are we alone in the universe? And no matter what anyone says, there is still no definitive answer to it. Despite the fact that the raw materials for life are everywhere and planets are abundant, there is not a single known world other than Earth that could confidently be called a home for life. However, there is hope that the search for the first signs of extraterrestrial life will be successful in the near future on exoplanets orbiting distant stars. There may be life. By measuring the spectral characteristics of their atmospheres using transit spectroscopy or, in the near future, through direct imaging, we may be able to confirm this. But why look so far when, in fact, it's possible that it exists right here in our solar system? Mars, Titan, Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede, Pluto, there are plenty of candidates, not long ago on Venus of all places, who would have thought phosphine was discovered. This exciting discovery is significant for science, chemistry, and the very question of life in the universe. In many ways, Venus is the most Earth-like planet in the solar system. With a comparable mass and radius, it could have been watery, moist, and equally conducive to life as Earth for hundreds of millions or even billions of years. However, today its surface is inhospitable and scorching, with a thick, sulfuric acid-rich atmosphere. But nonetheless, it offers a wide potential for chemical processes. Phosphine, at first glance, may not seem like a remarkable molecule. Let's first recall the most abundant elements in the universe: hydrogen and helium, followed by oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. These elements are formed in the previous generations of stars and are found in the atmospheres of rocky planets in our solar system. Systems, including Venus, Earth, and Mars, were dominated by these elements, likely containing significant amounts of water, methane, and ammonia. But it's not all that simple. For example, selene is analogous to methane, hydrogen sulfide shares many properties with water, and ammonia has many similarities with a spin. Here on Earth, selene is a colorless, easily flammable, and toxic gas. However, it is also naturally produced by anaerobic bacteria in conditions of oxygen deficiency. In a new study, a group of scientists from various fields came together to publish a series of 3 articles announcing an impressive discovery. In the upper layers of the hazy atmosphere of Venus, reaching its peak in the mid-latitudes, phosphine was detected, and this is not a mere assumption. Without a doubt, this radio signal was observed by 2 different observatories independently. They both observed the same absorption feature of equal strength at the same wavelength. Venus is a well-known natural emitter, and phosphine creates a distinctive dip in this emission due to its presence. This scientific discovery itself is very significant, but it tells us very little. Phosphine exists in the temperate zone of Venus or in its vicinity. The temperature and atmospheric pressure are comparable to those found on the surface of the Earth, despite the hazy and dense atmosphere rich in sulfuric acid. The detected phosphine signal is strongest in the mid-latitudes, with a concentration of around 20 parts per billion, which is about 0.02% of Venus's atmosphere. Molecules in the Venusian atmosphere have many different wavelengths at which they can absorb light, which means that numerous different signatures can be observed. If we need to quantitatively assess the presence of this molecule's property in the Venusian atmosphere, currently there is only detection at one specific wavelength. However, if there are several other wavelengths observed, they will provide much more information. So far, the presence of phosphine has been established, but the next step will be understanding its origin there. For all of humanity in general, in our long history of space exploration, there is not so much a lack as a shortcoming that needs to be addressed. When an unexpected signature is unexpectedly discovered, an explanation that goes beyond our current understanding, the wildest conclusion is immediately drawn: extraterrestrial life. For example, about 40 years ago, carbon monoxide was discovered in the atmosphere of Titan, and its chemical composition could not explain this very signature. However, about 10 years later, the mystery was solved. It was found that Enceladus, an icy moon rich in geysers, was adding water to Titan's atmosphere. Since 2004, methane has also been detected on Mars, raising suspicions of the existence of something alive. But now, thanks to the Mars rover Curiosity, we know that methane exhibits a seasonal nature and even changes within a single day. Many are searching for a biological explanation, but in this case, we can also recall the mysterious star, Tabby's star, and the megastructures observed around it. Extraterrestrial megastructures are undoubtedly the most memorable headline, but there are many stars with peculiar dimming. Today, explanations involving these megastructures as alien constructions are considered far-fetched. It's not difficult to explain why we jump to such conclusions, but it takes time. And I believe that with time, it will pass. So, it's better for us to return to phosphine. The surface of Venus, like many other rocky bodies in our solar system, contains a large amount of phosphorus in the form of various phosphates. However, the conversion of these phosphates into phosphine is a complex task. One of the scientists working on this discovery, Dr. William Baines, described in detail 3 possible pathways for this conversion. Photochemical processes induced by solar radiation in the upper layers of Venus's atmosphere, chemical processes resulting from thermodynamic effects in the lower layers of the atmosphere, or geochemical processes resulting from chemical reactions on the surface. By using the most complex chemical modeling and considering a range of exotic scenarios, he found that none of these options fit. They all produce too little phosphine to explain the observed signal. And as you may have noticed, the scientists mentioned 3 options, but one is missing. Could phosphine be produced through a biological pathway? In fact, if we look at how phosphine is produced on Earth, it is exclusively through biological means. On Earth, it is a natural process carried out by bacteria in an anaerobic environment, or artificially produced by humans. However, there is still much we don't know about its natural production, including which organism actually produces it. Presumably, a form of E. coli is involved in its biochemical pathway. Can this pathway be reproduced non-organically? Meanwhile, phosphine has been found abundantly throughout the universe in large quantities. It exists in the atmospheres of gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn, and it is found both as a standalone molecule and associated with other molecules around carbon-rich stars and even in the interstellar medium. But what is the reason for its appearance specifically on Venus? One thing can be said for sure. It is definitely related to an unknown chemical reaction. Some form of chemistry, in one way or another, produces these numerous phosphine molecules. This unknown chemical reaction could have one of several causes. It could be easily associated with a geological process, purely chemical. In principle, it could be any of them, but still, betting on biology is like buying a lottery ticket and hoping to hit the jackpot. If life produces this phosphine, it must somehow survive by reacting with sulfuric acid, and it would require the microorganisms producing phosphine to be extremely abundant and efficient. They would need to occupy the entire volume of Venus's atmosphere in the moderate zone and work with almost maximum efficiency to account for this signal. It is not impossible, but it is a highly unusual scenario. So, if phosphine is not a product of life on Venus, then the intriguing question arises, what is the actual source of phosphine? It cannot be produced in the same way as on Jupiter or Saturn, where its production depends on the strong pressure created by the dense hydrogen atmosphere. However, ruling out all possible chemical reactions is also not possible. What are the densities of different gases in Venus's atmosphere? Dependent on altitude and latitude? What is the distribution of phosphine? What are the precursor molecules or the molecules involved after its breakdown? And how the presence of various sulfur compounds, which exist in abundance in Venus's atmosphere, changes the reaction equations that we expect. There's still much we do not know about our neighboring planet, and only after answering these questions can we discuss the biological origin, that is, life. To understand the origin of phosphine, it will require not only new qualitative observations, but also additional missions to explore Venus. Perhaps that is the only way to reach the truth, And maybe that's why all this buzz was created. I intentionally didn't rush with a video on this topic, although I'm probably obligated to cover it on our channel. After all, it's practically one of the biggest events in cosmology this year. But the more I read about this subject, the more I thought that there have been relatively few missions to Venus. The near future was planned for Mars, Titan, Europa, Enceladus, and wherever else. Maybe it was necessary to pay more attention to Venus, but there simply wasn't a more successful alternative. But now, after the sensation with Phosphine, you can see that things are already stirring up. There are missions planned for Venus. In general, agree that there is something to it. But returning to our topic, claims that phosphine is a sign of extraterrestrial life are at best wild speculative ideas and at worst simply fiction. It's an astonishing discovery, but it doesn't necessarily mean there is life on Venus. Don't forget to like and comment on the video and let us know what you think about it. Subscribe to our channel as it's interesting. On Saturn's moon Titan, there are both land and seas, as well as 6 elements that are abundant. So scientists believe that there's a high possibility of life on Titan. Let's take a closer look at the possibility of life on Titan. Titan, a moon of Saturn, is huge, second only to Ganymede in size among moons in the solar system. With a radius of about 2575 kilometers, it is 1.5 times larger than the moon and about 40 the size of the Earth. Although it can be observed from Earth, it is difficult to observe Titan's interior properly because of its thick atmosphere. Therefore, Titan was a mysterious celestial body shrouded in mystery for a while. However, in 1997, the European Space Agency and NASA launched the Cassini spacecraft to explore Saturn and its moons, and this spacecraft visited Titan. Hundreds of photos and atmospheric composition analysis were sent to Earth, revealing its identity. The image of Titan sent by the Cassini spacecraft was quite ordinary, with mostly wide plains and sand dunes created by the wind in low-lying areas. There were even mountains as high as 3,330 meters. At first glance, these photos look like hazy days on Earth with dust or fine dust. Clouds were also observed in the sky of Titan. Weather phenomena occurred on Titan similar to those on Earth, with rain falling and lakes forming on the plains, and even seas forming in low-lying areas. Like Earth, liquid circulation also occurs on Titan. With this information, it seems that the speculations of Professor Carl Sagan, who was always right about the possibility of life on Titan, were not true. Or perhaps humans on Earth will one day be able to live on Titan? Because it is located as far as 1.4 billion kilometers away from the Sun, it doesn't receive enough solar heat properly. So, the average temperature of Titan is minus 179 degrees Celsius. Titan can be called a supergiant freezer. Normally, if the temperature is minus 179 degrees, all the clothes on this satellite should freeze. Clouds 3 and oceans confirmed through Cassini-5 have a significant discrepancy with what we usually know. The hills on Titan were formed by completely freezing, and the seas on Titan were made up of methane. Also, the clouds were not white clouds gathered by water vapor like Earth, but had a murky appearance. When we only saw Titan in photos, we thought it could be habitable, but it's definitely not a place with a climate like Earth. Even though our environment is like this, scientists' opinions were very positive when Titan was discovered, except for Earth, as it is the only place where liquid is maintained on the surface in a stable way. This is the first celestial body that we confirmed, and there might be life forms here. Also, thanks to the layered structure of Titan, there are winds and rain, making it an optimal place for life. Now, let's take a closer look at Titan. Titan has a dense, murky atmosphere. The atmospheric pressure is about 1.45 times that of Earth, and about 98% of the atmosphere is made up of nitrogen with trace amounts of methane. Interestingly, aside from Earth, Titan is the only celestial body in the solar system with nitrogen. Scientists say that Titan's nitrogen-rich atmosphere is very similar to the primitive atmosphere of Earth about 3.8 billion years ago. If we can analyze Titan's atmosphere, we can learn more about the changes in Earth's atmosphere. Currently, nitrogen is the most abundant gas in Earth's atmosphere, accounting for 78, followed by oxygen at 20, 1 to oxygen at 20, 1 tide, and argon at 0.90. These atmospheric compositions are present on Earth. However, these ratios have changed slightly over the course of several hundred million to billions of years. Titan's dense nitrogen atmosphere causes a greenhouse effect which maintains a high temperature despite receiving very little solar radiation. This keeps methane in a liquid and gaseous state. If Titan did not have nitrogen, all of its methane would have frozen and Titan itself would have become a completely frozen celestial body. Amazingly, the study of Titan has even led to the discovery of some unique molecules that are essential for life formation, such as cyclopropenthenylidene, which is composed of carbon and 2 hydrogen atoms. This molecule is an important building block for life and also serves as food for other organisms. Although cyclopropenthenylidene is difficult to pronounce and understand, it is a crucial substance that cannot be overlooked in the formation of life in the universe, and has been observed occasionally in interstellar matter. However, except for Titan, there's been no discovery of such compounds in other celestial bodies, so it's really amazing and remarkable. Cyclopropenthenylidene, composed of 2 carbon atoms and 2 hydrogen atoms, has been discovered in Titan's atmosphere using the ALMA radio telescope by NASA's research team. The discovery of this molecule, which is difficult to pronounce and has caused quite a stir, is an essential component of the formation of living organisms and can also serve as food for other organisms. Although it has occasionally been observed among interstellar substances in the universe, it has never been found in any other celestial body until now, except for Titan. This is really remarkable, especially considering that it has only been found in 2 places: Titan, which is similar to the primitive Earth environment, and some other celestial body. Moreover, many benzene compounds have also been detected. These compounds play a role in the formation of complex organic matter. In addition, there are other compounds such as argon and carbon monoxide in the atmosphere of Titan, which is conducive to the formation of organic matter during its evolution. It is an environment where organic matter formed during its evolution is falling like light snow. There's one more fact to note about Titan. It is that 82% of its surface is covered with organic matter. According to Dr. Rosalie Lopes, a NASA scientist, more than 82% of Titan's surface is composed of organic matter that has fallen from its atmosphere and has been transported by winds. This means that Titan's organic matter is very abundant, which suggests the possibility of the existence of living organisms. This is an exciting discovery that raises the possibility of the existence of microbial or other life forms. If such life forms were present, there would be abundant sources of food. Another important fact is that there are oceans on Titan. Prior to this, lakes were discovered on Titan, but now it has been revealed that there are oceans as well. If the liquid in these oceans seeps into the subsurface, it could provide sufficient conditions for the birth of life. While this liquid is not water, Titan is the only celestial body in our solar system, besides Earth, where liquid exists on the surface. Scientists have found that Titan's oceans are deeper than previously thought. In fact, during an investigation of one of Titan's seas, Kraken Mare, the equipment that was used to probe the sea was limited by its technological capabilities and was unable to reach the bottom, which is at least 300 meters deep. This is more than 7 times deeper than the average depth of the West Sea, which is approximately 43 meters. In addition, there are geological activities like volcanic activities in Titan, and if such visual activities occur, an ecosystem ranging from microorganisms that use organic matter around the hot springs as food to predators on top of them may have formed. From the beginning, including Titan, organic matter is very abundant. So if miraculously some organisms were discovered on Titan, an ecosystem of organisms and their mothers could have already formed in Titan's sea. The most important clue is this. Recently, it was found that after hydrogen descends from Titan's atmosphere, it disappears from the surface, according to the data collected by Cassini. Some scientists at JPL are claiming that this may be the result of primitive life breathing in and consuming material on the surface. However, Titan's flowing liquid is methane, So if life is actually emerging and surviving here on Titan, the living organisms of Titan may be based on maybe based on methane. Scientists are looking at Titan's existence of life with a very positive outlook. NASA has started the Dragonfly project to explore the seas of Titan. They will fly a kind of drone powered by a blue-tone fuel to observe various terrains of Titan. The Dragonfly project is expected to launch in 2026 and arrive near Saturn in 2034. They plan to use a parachute to land on Titan when the weather is favorable and then switch to flight mode to explore and collect samples. Previously, Genius explorations were mostly conducted using ground vehicles, but this method had limitations in mobility, so the goal is to easily explore multiple locations. I will go crazy with my child's drone to explore. The target distance and time for the exploration are about 2 years, 7 months, and approximately 175 km. This distance is twice the distance traveled by all Mars rovers so far. NASA hasn't made a final decision yet, but they say they could send a 1-ton submarine to Titan. The purpose would be to explore the largest Krakenmare Sea on Titan, which has a fairly deep depth from the beginning. A submarine would be 10 times better than a drone to explore it. If we explore the liquid methane ocean with a submarine, we could thoroughly examine the ocean floor. What do you think about the possibility of life on Titan, Saturn's moon? Please leave your comments, and I'll be back with more fun movie content next time. This was the report so far. Jupiter is enormous. It could fit 1,300 Earths inside it. It's extremely hot here, with the planet's core temperature reaching almost 24,000 degrees. Unfortunately, we can't land on Jupiter. It's a gas giant with no solid surface, but it is possible to descend deeper into Jupiter's atmosphere. Look at those dense brown, yellow, red, and white clouds. It's because of them that the planet appears so colorful and striped. If we descend to the planet's center, we can see how its atmosphere, composed of hydrogen and helium gas, turns into a liquid. All thanks to the immense atmospheric pressure around Jupiter's core. There are many mysteries swirling around. Scientists have not yet determined whether it is a molten sphere, a dense liquid, or a solid rock. It is 14 to 18 times larger than Earth, regardless. We came here to see the Great Red Spot, a massive atmospheric vortex raging in the planet's southern hemisphere. It is nearly 8 kilometers taller than the surrounding clouds and almost 1.5 times wider than our planet. In 2017, space probes such as Voyager and Juno gathered a lot of information about the Great Red Spot. It turns out to be a monstrous storm that extends 322 kilometers deep into the planet's atmosphere, which is 30 to 100 times deeper than any ocean on Earth. However, these data might be imprecise, and the origins of the vortex could be even deeper. The Great Red Spot is colder than the rest of the atmosphere. The temperature on Jupiter's upper cloud layers is minus 148 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, the closer to the core, the hotter it gets. It is strange that the high temperatures observed on Jupiter were registered in the atmosphere directly above the Great Red Spot. There, the temperature reached 1,300 degrees Celsius higher than the temperature of lava on our planet. Astronomers believe that turbulence caused by the vortex can lead to gravitational and sound waves, which may be the cause of overheating. However, at the bottom of the vortex is warmer than at the top. People have been observing the vortex on Jupiter for over 150 years. Astronomers once predicted that it would gradually slow down, shrink, or disappear completely, but that turned out not to be the case. After analyzing all the data obtained with the help of the Hubble Space Telescope, scientists were perplexed when they discovered that the winds at the outer boundaries of the vortex gained speed. The changes amounted to no more than 2.5 kilometers per hour over the course of one Earth year, which is very small. However, despite this, it still holds great significance. The wind speed at the edges of the vortex can reach an incredible 645 km/h, faster than a tornado on Earth. But it turns out that if you were in the center of the Great Red Spot, the spectacle would not impress you because the wind speed there is much lower. Scientists faced numerous challenges when trying to unravel the mystery of the Great Red Spot. It is unknown what fuels this vortex. It may be something within the planet itself. Being a gas giant, Jupiter lacks a solid surface, so there's no friction, the only phenomenon capable of weakening the vortex. The hot gases in the planet's atmosphere are constantly in motion, rising, descending, and swirling, similar to Earth, where colder and warmer air masses mix and merge, forming giant storms. Astronomers believe that at some point, several massive storms could have merged to create the Great Red Spot, and now it constantly absorbs cold gases from below and hot gases from above. Furthermore, the vortex can absorb smaller vortices, making the Great Red Spot even stronger. Unfortunately, due to the dense clouds on Jupiter, astronomers cannot see what is happening in the lower layers of the planet's atmosphere. Scientists have long pondered what might be hiding beneath the Great Red Spot. A massive volcano is unlikely, as Jupiter is primarily composed of gases and lacks a crust that could crack, allowing lava to erupt. There are several theories about why the vortex has such a color range. It varies from whitish and pale pink to bright orange and brick red. Scientists believe that the answer lies deep beneath the Great Red Spot, closer to the planet's surface. A colorless layer of gas can likely react to ultraviolet radiation from the sun, resulting in a red color. However, this is currently just a theory. Hey, you've also thought about it, right? Jupiter isn't the only star with a giant vortex. Another one, the size of our Earth, is raging on Saturn, and it's called the Great White Spot. How original! Vortices have a tail of white clouds surrounding the entire planet. This phenomenon occurs approximately every 30 years. This vortex actually starts as a spot, but then it expands more and more. Astronomers have discovered that the Great White Spot is a massive thunderstorm system. The size of the storm can produce lightning flashes more than 10 times per second. But the main mystery of the Great White Spot lies in its energy source. Some scientists believe it can draw energy from the sun, while others claim that the structure of the thunderclouds only makes sense if there is an internal heat source powering the wind. Nevertheless, powerful vortices exist on different planets in the solar system, and ours is not the only one. Let's move to Pluto, the largest of the known dwarf planets in the solar system, and explore its atmosphere. It extends high above the planet's surface and contains more than 20 layers of icy formations. By the way, the Moon also has an atmosphere called the exosphere, composed of helium, neon, and argon. It is about 10 trillion times thinner than Earth's atmosphere. A black hole is a place where gravity is so strong that even light cannot escape. However, sometimes they can behave like enormous galactic volcanoes. Black holes can ignite like volcanoes, but instead of spewing lava, they generate an enormous amount of energy. As a result, they leave behind huge voids in the surrounding gas and material. Recently, scientists discovered one of the largest craters in the universe. Radio and X-ray telescopes detected a supermassive black hole that ignited many years ago. This event occurred in a galaxy cluster located approximately 390 million light-years away from Earth. The remaining crater can accommodate 15 Milky Way galaxies. During space travel, think twice before landing on unknown planets, or else you might find yourself in a place like Kepler. This planet is outside our solar system, and at first glance, it doesn't differ much from Earth. There are liquid oceans that evaporate, forming clouds instead of condensing. On this planet, rain falls not from water, but from stones. The surface of this exoplanet is covered with lava seas that reach depths of tens of kilometers. During the day, the temperature on 141 reaches nearly 28 degrees Celsius, which is enough for the magma in the oceans to evaporate into the atmosphere. Then, supersonic winds with speeds of up to 1.5 kilometers per second transport the vaporized rock to the planet's night side. The evaporated magma cools down, turns liquid again, and falls as a stone rain. Sometimes it seems that our planet is huge, and we are just tiny particles, mere specks against its colossal dimensions. Indeed, in the scale of the universe, Earth appears to be a giant, but it is actually insignificant and small. We often talk about distant galaxies and the edge of the universe to understand the place our planet occupies in this world. However, what if we take a journey not billions of light years away, as we have become accustomed to, but instead stay within the confines of our solar system? It might seem boring, but there's still much we don't know about the planets we were taught about in school and the countries whose names we heard. Leave your earthly problems behind and look at the night sky, where the moon stands out prominently. The moon, an unchanging natural satellite of Earth, has been visited by 12 American astronauts. The first, as you know, was Neil Armstrong, who set foot on the moon in 1969. The last person to set foot on the moon was Harrison Schmitt in 1972. 51 years have passed since then. However, despite that, the moon remembers everything. It is distant from the Earth at a distance of 384,400 km, but in the scale of the universe, it is not such a great distance. However, in human perception, this journey appears to be very, very long. It is quite possible that a new journey to the moon will happen very soon. In May 2020, a manned lunar flyby is planned as part of the Artemis II mission, and in 2025, there are plans to land humans on its surface during the Artemis III mission. Who knows, perhaps after that, we will look at the moon with a completely different perspective. Let's fly away from Earth a little further. There's something more interesting waiting for us there, Venus. The planet named after the Roman goddess of beauty truly mesmerizes with its hostile and deadly beauty. Due to its reflecting sunlight clouds, it is also the brightest planet in our solar system. So it is impossible not to notice it. It has several names: the morning star, the evening star, and the evil twin of Earth. But why the evil twin? Judge for yourself, as the sizes of both planets are indeed similar. However, while Earth is a comfortable planet for life, Venus, on the contrary, is harsh. The atmospheric layer of Venus is dominated by carbon dioxide gas, and the clouds, which could be mistaken for earthly ones, are made of sulfuric acid. Life forms as we know them wouldn't survive, and that's not the only reason why Venus can be considered an absolute hell. It's incredibly hot on Venus, somewhere around 500 degrees Celsius, not a pleasant temperature, I must say. And of course, if we were to land on the surface of Venus, we would simply turn into a pancake. It's all due to the deadly gravity for human beings. Truly, it is the evil twin of Earth, deadly beautiful. Global warming here is without exaggeration taken to the extreme. It's quite likely that things were not always like this, and Venus was not as menacing. There's a theory that over time, Earth may end up looking the same with a threatening atmosphere. Who knows, perhaps everything is indeed like that, and maybe a different fate awaits Earth, similar to Venus. Closest to the Sun is Mercury, and it is also an extremely inhospitable planet. During the day, the temperature there is around 430 degrees Celsius. At night, it drops to 190 degrees, horrifying temperature fluctuations. The terrain of Mercury is characterized by numerous irregularities, which indicate the turbulent times it has endured. For its size, the planet is quite massive, and its gravitational force is truly enormous. Perhaps, at some point, the planet was larger, but due to a collision with another planet during its early stages of existence, it reduced in size. Who knows, if that hadn't happened, Mercury could look completely different now. Yes, the cosmos is cruel and not everyone's destined to remain intact or even survive. Our main star, the Sun, the source of life and death. It is just as deadly in its magnificence as Venus. Thanks to the Sun, life exists on our planet. However, it can also destroy us. Our ancestors were aware of the tremendous power of the Sun and its influence on us. That's why, in ancient beliefs, there was always a sun god, such as Helios in ancient Greece or Re in ancient Egypt. The Incas worshipped the sun, and the Aztecs feared it. The surface of the Sun is very hot. The temperature reaches 572 Kelvin. In the inner layers, it's even orders of magnitude higher, and it's terrifying to imagine that figure. Just imagine the power of the nuclear reactions happening there when you go out to bask in the sun on a spring day. Remember how deadly the sun is and how many nuclear reactions are occurring on it at that very moment. Prominences, which are loops that form above the surface, are held in place by the sun's magnetic field. Even 10 million volcanoes would barely produce as much energy as a single one of those loops generates. Sunspots also form there, and they stand out due to their black color. Their temperature is an order of magnitude lower than the surrounding areas. However, the sun has great power, but nothing lasts forever, and our main star is no exception. Sooner or later, the sun will reach its point of slow fading and perish, and that means the same fate awaits our home planet, and we will continue to acquaint you with these facts. Humanity is not only interested in what will happen in the future, but also in what has happened in the past. Take comets, for example. They also carry tremendous power within them. Our planet has not encountered comets on its path for a long time. However, according to some specialists, one of them could have collided with the Earth and contributed to the emergence of life by providing us with water. And that's precisely why Earth could have become the way we know it now. This allowed the human race to come into existence. But imagine what would have happened if a comet collided with our planet now. It would mean the end of humanity, at least on Earth. Perhaps, if such an event occurred, some people would start searching for a new home on another planet in giant space arcs like in science fiction novels. But for now, we haven't ventured beyond the solar system. We're heading towards Mars, the red planet. Attempts to find even traces of living organisms there started a long time ago. Mars has always captivated people's imagination. Just think of the countless works of science fiction dedicated to Martians and the possibility of life on Mars. This theme has intrigued visionaries like H.G. Wells long before the first satellite was launched into Earth's orbit. But what if all these stories carry at least a fraction of truth? Would we be able to accept such information? This question, for now, remains unanswered. Mars holds a vast amount of fossils, and there are powerful sandstorms occurring there. Mars has an atmosphere, although it is too thin. Carbon dioxide dominates its composition. It wouldn't be easy for a living organism to survive there, to say the least. Additionally, the surface temperature drops to 60 degrees Celsius. However, of course, there are creatures that can survive in very harsh conditions, in theory. They could potentially live on Mars, but there are some nuances. There needs to be geological activity to produce various essential substances. We should continue exploring Mars more and more actively. Then we will know more about its past, present, and future. The Opportunity rover, one of the two rovers, took on the task of studying the planet's surface. As part of the Mars Exploration Rover project, NASA has embarked on surface exploration. Many of the plains we see on the surface could have been Martian lakes. Furthermore, there's a hypothesis that water flows in the planet's subsurface layers. Perhaps there was life on Mars in the past. Can you imagine? You'll be even more surprised. After all, there's a theory that Mars gave life to Earth. It is suggested that at some point there was a collision between Mars and some object, possibly an asteroid, which resulted in a piece separating from Mars. Martian microorganisms remained on that fragment. Later, this part fell to Earth along with everything else, which gave rise to the emergence of life on our planet. Oh, there is still so much we don't know about Mars. During our journey to the next planet, we encounter difficulties, namely with asteroids. Their speed usually reaches 80,000 kilometers per hour, and their width can reach hundreds of kilometers in earlier periods. As a result of collisions, fragments of asteroids would break off, and some of them would later become planets, which laid the foundation for our planetary system. For example, we have learned that the age of Earth is approximately 4.5 billion years by studying the remnants of meteorites on the surface of our planet. However, some fragments of asteroids did not become planets. They encountered insurmountable barriers along their way. Jupiter, a giant planet. Compared to it, Earth appears to be just a small sphere. Multiple Earths could fit inside Jupiter. Due to its size, the gravitational force of the giant planet is very powerful. Under the gravity of Jupiter, asteroids that enter its zone of influence cannot transform into planets. It is also called a gas giant, and it's not without reason, as gas predominantly makes up its composition. So, if we were to land on the planet's surface, we would see firsthand that its upper layers are quite soft and we could easily sink into them. Furthermore, Jupiter, like its counterparts in the planetary system, is mesmerizingly beautiful. And this beauty is also deadly to all living things on the gas giant. There are very strong winds that race across its surface at tremendous speeds, resulting in the formation of various whirls and vortices which can be observed in Jupiter's imaging. The most notable of them is the Great Red Spot, which is approximately 300 years old and is 3 times larger than Earth in size. Can you imagine that? Jupiter is a deadly planet where, in addition to everything else, there are incredibly high levels of radiation. The amount of radiation it possesses attracts the strongest magnetic field to the planet. Indeed, it is better to admire such beauty from a distance, as it is unlikely that any force could calm down this majestic planet. As you can see, we have ventured not far from Earth, and how breathtaking discoveries we have made. We certainly know that this is far from everything the solar system has to tell us. And what do you think it will reveal to us someday about the history of the universe? Will it share the secrets of extraterrestrial life? Which fact has been the most interesting to you? And what did you already know about the history of our solar system?
Scientists studying space believe that there must be life forms somewhere other than Earth. With the era of space exploration in full swing, humanity is searching for traces of life within our solar system. Among the many planets, the most likely place to find life is Mars. So why do scientists believe that there is a high possibility of life on Mars? In the late 19th century, astronomers observed Mars through telescopes and discovered that it rotates on its axis and its tilt is similar to Earth's. They also observed that Mars had seasons, which indicated that Mars has an atmosphere similar to Earth. These observations suggested that Mars is like a second Earth with its own unique features. In addition, in 1877, Mars moons Phobos and Deimos were discovered, further increasing interest in Mars. Since then, scientists have continued to observe Mars and have found evidence of water on its surface, leading to the possibility of the existence of life on the planet. I discovered that some areas of the surface were bright, while others were dark, and at the time, scholars believed these to be continents. They also thought that Mars had a dense atmosphere, and when they continued to observe Mars, they believed that the changing colors on the surface were due to the seasonal changes of plants on Mars. In October 1895, the American astronomer Percival Lowell made the following claim: "Through my telescope, I have watched Mars for a long time, and I am sure that there are canals made by Martians. And on the planet, there is a civilization and Martians live in society." In the 18th century and early 19th century, scientists had debated whether or not there was evidence of life on Mars. However, as humanity's space technology rapidly advanced, some scientists began to argue that we should go to Mars to find out firsthand. The first country to attempt to explore Mars was the Soviet Union in the 1960s, but they experienced many failures. In 1965, the U.S.'s Mariner 4 became the first spacecraft to approach Mars closely and send back images to Earth. The photos taken at that time totaled 22, but since it was an era of black and white photography, the image quality was not very good. Then, in November 1971, the U.S.'s Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to successfully enter Mars orbit and sent back an enormous amount of data to Earth, including only 9 photos out of 7,300 taken, capturing about 80% of the Martian surface. The photos taken are diverse, including impact craters, the largest volcano in the solar system, Olympus Mons, and the erosion and deposition that occurred, almost showing the entire Martian surface. During this time, the Soviet Union was also tirelessly pursuing Mars exploration, but they didn't achieve significant results. Now, the United States, with billions of dollars, is embarking on the ambitious Viking project, focused on searching for extraterrestrial life. After the successful landing in 1980, Mars became a utopia. They successfully landed on the plains and immediately transmitted nearly 16,000 images back to Earth. In 1976, Viking 1 and Viking 2 successfully landed on Mars. After landing, they began searching for signs of life on Mars. They collected samples from the Martian surface and analyzed the atmosphere, but they couldn't find any trace of organic matter. However, the Viking lander had a fatal problem of being unable to move after landing. With all the exploration they're doing on Mars, it seems like they won't be satisfied with just one purpose. For the Mars exploration, NASA sent a rover with 6 wheels to actively explore various places. That's how the Mars Pathfinder was launched, with the intention of exploring multiple locations. The Pathfinder landed on Mars in July 1997. The Sojourner rover traveled around various locations on Mars for about 3 months, researching the atmosphere, soil, and rocks in search of life forms. However, once again, they did not find any friends of any life forms. Nevertheless, there were still significant achievements. It was revealed that the Homestake event occurred about 3 million years ago, causing erosion that created the Ares Vallis. This means that our existence on Mars had an impact. After the success of the Mars Pathfinder, humanity continued to send exploration missions to Mars. The goal is to explore Mars itself or find evidence of water or life on Mars. First, Mars Odyssey found evidence of water and ice on the surface of Mars from orbit. In 2003, the European Space Agency's Mars Express mission discovered water molecules at the South Pole of Mars and succeeded in capturing images of ice. In 2008, NASA's Phoenix mission landed at the Martian North Pole, where it found water and ice and collected samples from the surface. The purpose of studying these Martian samples is to determine whether there is life on Mars or whether it could support life. Next, the Q-City mission discovered that methane levels on Mars vary significantly with the seasons. On Earth, methane is mostly produced by animal waste or the decay of organic matter. Therefore, methane is a powerful indicator of life. Of course, methane could also be produced geologically. Currently, researchers are actively studying where this methane comes from and whether it is produced geologically or by living organisms. Humans have sent dozens of Mars probes so far, but we have never found any signs of life or even traces of it. Why is there no life on Mars? First of all, it is very unlikely for Mars to be habitable. Its mass is only 1/10 that of Earth and its gravity is only 1/3 that of Earth's. If a 70 kilograms person goes to Mars, their weight would become only 26 kilograms. Because of the weak gravity, Mars cannot hold on to its atmosphere, which gradually escapes into space. Second, Mars is much colder than Earth and its magnetic field is very weak, only 1/8100 of Earth's. With such a weak magnetic field, Mars cannot block the solar wind, which causes the atmosphere to disappear. As a result, there is hardly any air on Mars. Of course, Mars has some potential for becoming habitable, and we are actively researching whether there is any microbial life on the planet, or whether it could support life in the future. Earth-like, Mars has carbon dioxide and water vapor in its atmosphere and even oxygen. However, the atmospheric pressure on the Martian surface is only about 0.006 times that of Earth's surface pressure, which is only 0.75%. With such thin air, it would be impossible for any living organism to survive. Compared to the Earth's environment, the Martian atmosphere is almost like a vacuum. This thin atmosphere also lowers the boiling point of water on Mars. The boiling point of water on Mars is only 27 degrees Celsius, so if humans were to be exposed to Mars' atmosphere, the water inside their bodies could be sucked out. Another interesting fact is that the boiling point is the temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid equals the external pressure. If the external pressure decreases, the vapor pressure also decreases, so the boiling point decreases as well. In such an environment, even the most resilient organisms that are said to have high human survivability would find it very difficult to survive for an extended period of time. Mars also has extremely harsh temperatures. The average temperature on Mars is -80 degrees Celsius, and the surface temperature can drop as low as -140 degrees Celsius and rise up to 20 degrees Celsius. This temperature fluctuation is due to the thinness of the Martian atmosphere, which means that the molecules that make up the atmosphere are narrow and have less kinetic energy to maintain temperature and heat. This is why scientists have come to the conclusion that there is a very high likelihood that there is no life on Mars, as they have been studying the planet's physical characteristics since the 1960s when they began sending Mars exploration probes. Today's video discusses the process of exploring life on Mars by our parliament and why scientists have determined that the possibility of life on Mars is very low. However, there are some who still insist that humans must colonize Mars, despite its harsh environment, and one such person is Elon Musk of SpaceX. As I mentioned earlier, today's video was a review of the movie The Martian, and I will return with the next installment in the series on extraterrestrial life.
Imagine that you are searching for a lost diamond on the beach. Again and again, something seems to glitter amidst the sparkling sea of sand, but it's just a shard of glass, and disappointment washes over you once more. Have you ever wondered why we conjure up such strange mental images? This is how astronomers feel as they try in vain to detect extraterrestrial signals. For years, scientists have strained their eyes through telescope eyepieces, peering into the darkness of space, but the meteor-riddled cosmos stubbornly keeps its grim secrets, sometimes broken only by rare signals of unknown origin. It's important to understand that the universe contains countless objects that can manifest themselves in blinding light, energetic pulsations, or radio bursts. We will now discuss the latter, what these phenomena represent, and the sensation that recently rocked the scientific world. This fall, astronomers were astonished by an unprecedented level of cosmic activity. In just a month and a half, over 1,600 radio signals reached the Earth, whereas previously, such messages were only counted in dozens at best. At times, instruments detected up to 1,500 signals in just 1 hour. Scientists were shocked by this, especially since fast radio bursts are considered the most inexplicable phenomena in the universe. What are these individual radio pulses and where do they come from? Science still does not have a clear answer. These bursts were discovered relatively recently in 2007, and like many phenomena in astronomy, the discovery was made accidentally during the analysis of data related to observations of pulsars. The duration of the signal was only a few milliseconds, but the energy of the event that caused it is indescribable. It is equivalent to the amount of energy released by our star over several days, all within a fraction of a second. To be honest, it is difficult to believe, but the fact remains. The radio signal was recorded, so astronomers started studying it. A group of scientists took 5 years to verify whether the 4:107:24 burst truly originated from the depths of space, and their detailed analysis showed that the radio burst lasting less than 5 milliseconds came from the core of the dwarf galaxy known as the Small Magellanic Cloud. The distance to the object that produced this signal was incredible, approximately 3 billion light-years, or 1 gigaparsec. Since no other signals were received, the group of scientists from the STATE, Association of Scientific and Applied Research, concluded that such phenomena are very rare in the universe. However, they were greatly mistaken. Let's first focus on the obvious discrepancies between the signal's duration and the energy that produced it. Dr. Sergei Popov, a professor of physics and mathematics at the Russian Academy of Sciences, openly ridicules this paradox in his lectures, asserting that such radio signals cannot be the result of extraterrestrial life. It is absolutely illogical to waste time on such a huge amount of energy for sending just one signal. Then the next question is, what is capable of generating such powerful radio bursts? To answer this, it's worth recalling the words of Sergei Popov, who reminds us that we've already encountered a similar phenomenon when studying gamma ray bursts in Soviet times. It was believed that this type of radiation was caused exclusively by atomic bomb explosions, so spy devices were regularly launched to detect such bursts in order to warn the governments of countries involved in the Cold War of the danger. As it turned out, thanks to active monitoring of space, it was discovered that objects millions of times more powerful than any atomic bomb could be the sources of gamma ray bursts, and these monsters are infinitely far from our planet. The final revelation happened 30 years after meticulous observations, during which time astronomers could not understand where dozens of powerful signals were coming from. If the source is within the boundaries of the solar system or not is still unclear. Far beyond our galaxy, of course, there were people who speculated about messages from extraterrestrial civilizations. However, it was not a gamma-ray burst, but a radio burst. As for gamma-ray bursts, scientists later found out what phenomenon had manifested itself in this way. It turned out to be a supernova explosion that caused the radio burst. If you look closely at the graph showing one radio signal of unknown origin, you can conclude that it is far beyond our capability. The source is located very far from the Earth, and the energy of the burst that caused life is equal to 10 billion times the brightness of the sun in 1 millisecond. What is interesting is how such power could fit within the radio spectrum. For example, gamma-ray bursts are much easier to explain, as they are present even on Earth during nuclear bomb detonations, and they hardly manifest themselves in the radio spectrum. Of course, this does not bring us any closer to solving the mystery of these bursts. If this is an extraterrestrial civilization, it is extremely wasteful to release so much energy literally into the wind. However, as with any important endeavor, there have been minor obstacles along the way that have thrown scientists off track. What amusing incident prevented astronomical investigation this time? The fact is that in the Australian Parkes Observatory, located in New South Wales, there was a minor obstruction. The instruments began to detect radio signals with a strange regularity, and various explanations were attributed to them, such as passing aircraft and lightning strikes, but the answer was right in front of them. It was a regular microwave that the observatory staff used, and hungry scientists were opening the oven doors before it finished its cycle, causing radio waves to escape and be picked up by the equipment. When everything was figured out, they started to investigate the very first signal, the famous Lorimer burst or fast radio burst, from 10,724. However, according to a detailed analysis, it turned out to be genuine and not related to any terrestrial radio instrument. So, is the Lorimer burst still the only one that has been detected? In 2013, after a series of false reports, sensors once again delighted astrophysicists by capturing several more millisecond signals. The conclusion was made that such bursts must be more common than previously thought. However, the question remained, what generates these signals? Until recently, scientists could only determine the location of where some bursts originated. In 2019, a single impulse with the code number 18924 was caught, and it turned out to have come from a distant galaxy in the constellation of Grus, 4 billion light-years away from the Sun. Then, in 2020, for the first time, a source was discovered that generated a monstrous burst. It was a neutron star with an incredibly strong magnetic field, located in the constellation Vulpecula in the Milky Way galaxy. At the moment, scientists have nothing new to report to the public, as they are still uncertain as to what causes these radio bursts, and there is no single scientific hypothesis. However, there are several interesting assumptions. First and foremost, it is worth mentioning the Avila hypothesis, as the professor of the Center for Astrophysics believes that radio bursts may be a result of the activity of some stars in our galaxy. An alternative view suggests that extragalactic sources are to blame, such as some exotic events like the collision of neutron stars, the transformation of a super-heavy pulsar into a black hole, or the activity of magnetars. As you can see, there is no mention of extraterrestrial civilizations, but do not think that scientists have not achieved anything during this time. Now we have the ability to record signals from the same source and more often catch radio bursts. This will be aided by the Chinese telescope FAST, as well as the radio telescope SIAM and CHIME, located in British Columbia, one of the provinces of Canada. The latter is capable of effectively scanning the sky and detecting new radio flashes. As for the spherical telescope located in the Chinese province of Guizhou, it will act not only as a signal catcher, but also allow the study of the evolution of dark matter and distant galaxies, as well as solve other scientific problems. Finally, It is worth noting that some scientists have put forth hypotheses that other astronomers doubt. For example, in our galaxy, there are about 30 magnetars, but for some reason, instruments have not yet detected anything resembling fast radio bursts emanating from these sources. There's something to think about, isn't there? Write your thoughts in the comments.
Space is a place of frighteningly vast distances. Just the thought that incredibly fast light takes 13 billion years to reach us from some galaxy can make one feel uneasy. But if we focus on the positive, the distance between us and Mars, just a dozen or so light minutes away, seems like a hop in space terms. And there are times when our cosmic neighbors seem incredibly close. Even the 4 light years to Alpha Centauri don't look scary compared to distant galaxies. It's insanely close, and there's no doubt that humanity will eventually reach our solar system's cosmic neighbors. But who are they, apart from Alpha Centauri? Few would name the stars neighboring our Sun, but don't worry, we'll cover that in the next couple of minutes, and also estimate how far away they are. Before we talk about the chances of finding life on our cosmic neighbors, let's first discuss how scientists can determine which stars in the sky are close to us and which are far away, and how they can be sure they're not mistaken. The concept of a parsec, which you've probably heard of from science fiction, is a unit of measurement that was introduced thanks to the use of parallax. The prefix par means parallel, and SEC stands for sector of gas, which is, of course, a joke. The actual meaning of acer is arcsecond, thanks to which we can use Apple devices to experience parallax in a simplified way. In fact, with the release of the iPhone 7, Apple introduced a new type of wallpaper that creates the illusion of depth when the phone is moved, simulating the effect of parallax. The term symbolizes the change in the apparent position of an object depending on the position of the observer. Try holding up your finger and closing your left eye while looking at it with your right eye. Then, quickly close your right eye and open your left eye. You should see your finger appear to jump to the side. This is the same principle that scientists use to measure the distance to nearby stars. If you move your finger closer to your eyes and repeat the procedure, you will see that it has shifted more than before. If you draw imaginary lines to your finger, you will get a triangle, one side of which you know well the distance between your eyes. The two angles at which the eyes are looking at the finger are also known, and finding the length of the remaining side, which will be the distance to the finger, is a matter of time. And now, put reason and great scientists, whole generations of hard work and huge formulas on this scheme, and you will get a method according to which the distance to the objects was calculated with excellent accuracy. Distances to thousands of stars, and even to the planets of our solar system, as well as the Sun itself, were initially determined using the parallax method. This method is based on observing how their position changes against more distant objects when viewed from different points or as the Earth rotates. It is not difficult to guess that objects that are too far away cannot be calculated using the parallax method since we are limited by the diameter of the Earth. Even when viewed from both ends of the planet or during a complete rotation, the displacement of distant stars will be negligible. Other methods are used for those objects. But what we are interested in are the nearest neighbors of the solar system, which can be reached by simple parallax and later refined using more accurate methods. It should be noted that even 10 light years is a huge distance. The distance is too great for us to judge the number of neighboring stars definitively. In order to determine the distance to something, you need to see it first, and among the stars, there are very dim brown dwarfs. Therefore, the question of a precise number of our nearest neighbors remains open at the moment. With brown dwarfs taken into account, it is estimated that there are 14 large neighboring stars at a distance of 10 light years from our solar system. Let's start our story with a tiny red dwarf, standing at a height of 154. If we were to send light directly towards it, it would take about 9 69/100 years to reach it, which is amazing. At least we know that this star is still alive, unlike some fairy dish that sent its light to us about 6,000 years ago. We see it as it was when the ancient Egyptians were building the Pyramid of Cheops, so what can we say about Rho 154? Not much. It's a very typical star, as red dwarfs make up more than half of the stars in the galaxy. Rho 154 is 5 times smaller than the Sun in mass and 300 times dimmer in brightness, and is located in the constellation Sagittarius. Despite its proximity to Earth, it cannot be seen with the naked eye. Interestingly, 154 is characterized by intense X-ray radiation, which is greater than that of the Sun. This can be explained by the star's relative youth, as it is less than 1 billion years old. At the time of its formation, there were already algae on Earth. However, due to its proximity to the Sun, the star falls into the first category of astronomers' attention. Searching for planets around stars is incredibly difficult because they are very dim compared to stars, and 154's height itself is not particularly bright, plus it is close. At one point, one of NASA's missions was very interested in studying this star because theoretically, we could find a planet there that is 3 times the size of Earth. However, unfortunately, funding was not obtained and there wasn't much reason for the planet, which would need to have Earth-like conditions, to be located 4 times closer to its star than Mercury is to the Sun. Its orbit would be blocked, and the hypothetical Earth-like planet around 154 would always be facing one side, receiving too much X-ray radiation and too little red light for photosynthesis. Therefore, even theoretically, finding habitable planets around red dwarfs like 154 is extremely challenging. We don't really have anything to do with our lives, but our theories are still based on the Earth, so let's talk about Sirius instead. You don't need to get to know it twice, it's the brightest star in the night sky. If you put the Sun and Sirius at the same distance, Sirius will be 25 times brighter than our star. However, we shouldn't be deceived, there are much brighter stars in space in absolute terms than Sirius. For example, Rigel's luminosity is about 120,000 times higher than the Sun's. If you were to switch places between Rigel and Sirius in the night sky, Rigel would shine like a third of the moon. Nevertheless, Sirius is still a bright star. It is roughly twice as heavy as the Sun and almost twice as large as the Earth, so it has been known to humans since ancient times. It was worshipped in ancient Egypt, Babylon, and Greece, and that's where it all started. The name Sirius, which translates as shining, also refers to its location in the constellation Canis Major. According to legend, Sirius is the dog of Orion. The Romans even translated the star's name as Canicula, meaning little dog, because its morning visibility coincided with hot days, which later became known as dog days thanks to the star. Now, the word vacation is associated with the meaning of the word canicula, and school children all over the planet are happy to have it. What is this neighbor, located just 8.5 light years away from us? Sirius is a great star of spectral class A1, and it has a tiny white dwarf companion, Sirius B, which astronomers jokingly call the puppy. This is really the case because Sirius B is 360 times dimmer than the Sun. However, it should be noted that there are much brighter stars in space than Sirius in absolute terms. Puppy is still well-fed, and in terms of mass, it is not inferior to our Sun, being one of the largest white dwarfs. However, this does not make the Sirius system particularly unique. There is every reason to believe that systems with 2 stars are more common in space than single stars, and our introverted Sun is a typical resident of the universe. If there is potential for life in this system from our point of view, then a terrestrial planet and conditions for liquid water would need to be located far from Sirius, as far as Jupiter is from the Sun, which is 4 times farther than the Earth is now. The year would last about 6 years, which is not the worst thing, but the worst is that Sirius emits much more ultraviolet radiation than the Sun. It is possible to forget, and therefore there are questions about ordinary free oxygen, and the weight of the Sirius puppy will also affect the orbit, and therefore the stability of conditions on the planet. In general, everything is very bad, and from the point of view of real research, even worse. Sirius is very bright, and despite its proximity to the Sun, it is very difficult to find a planet near it. Current scientific achievements allow us, in theory, to find only a planet with a mass of 510 Jupiters at a distance of 25 times farther than the Earth from the Sun. In 2008, such a test was conducted, and the result was predictable negative. Some scientists still believe that Sirius is not a binary triple star, and we still cannot conclusively refute them. Hubble tried to find another brown dwarf or some huge Jupiter, but he could not, although the theoretical calculations as a whole allow for the possibility of stable orbits within the system. Perhaps in the near future, we will study Sirius better, as it slowly approaches the Earth, and in the next few tens of thousands of years, it will shine even brighter. However, the distance will increase again, but we can say for sure that for another couple of 100,000 years, Sirius will be the brightest star in the sky, unlike our next neighbors. Wolf 359 is an insanely dim red dwarf. It is closer to us than Sirius and is located 7.8 light-years from the Sun, but much dimmer. It is impossible to see a planet with the naked eye in the sky. If we were to switch our Sun to Wolf 359, then Earth's round shape would disappear. Without a telescope, it wouldn't be visible, and during the day it would be 10 times brighter than during a full moon on Wolfie 359. We wouldn't have stopped if it weren't for its high cavity in two directions. The first reason is the potential presence of two exoplanets. In 2019, a team of astronomers led by Meg Kotlamy published a study announcing two candidates for exoplanets in the Wolf 359 system. The planet is 20 to 40 times larger than Earth and rotates twice as far away. The second planet is allegedly only 4 times larger than our planet and is located close to the star, close enough to allow the possibility of life. However, scientists quickly cooled their enthusiasm, as the amount of radiation that this hypothetical planet would receive would be many times greater than Earth's, making the existence of life unlikely. The planets themselves are still only candidates, as direct observation and confirmation of their existence is difficult. But scientists remain interested in Wolf 359 for two reasons. First, this star is located near the plane of the ecliptic, which means that if you were to look at the Sun from the Wolf 359 system, all the planets of the solar system would be visible at once. Hypothetically, if advanced aliens have scattered probes throughout the universe for scanning, then a probe on Wolfie 359 could easily discover the existence of Earth. And, in turn, by observing Wolfie 359, we may find a hypothetical probe studying us. Of course, these searches have not led to anything yet. Much more productive to scientists is the legendary star Barnard, another neighbor of our Sun. It is the second closest object of its type to us, or the fourth if you count Alpha Centauri, which is a triple star system. Firstly, it is important to know how fast Barnard's star is. It approaches us so quickly that it creates the impression that it owed the Sun 100 kilometers. Except for the Sun itself, it is the fastest star in the sky, flying towards us at a speed of 110 kilometers per second. And if now Barnard's star is somewhere 6 light-years away, then in 11,000 years of our era, the distance will be reduced by a third and will already be equal to 3 whole light-years. By cosmic standards, this is insanely fast. We see it as it was at the time when the construction of the Pyramid of Khufu in ancient Egypt had not yet begun. There is not much interesting to say about its height of 154, as it is a very typical star, since red dwarfs make up more than half of the stars in the galaxy. Its height is 5 times smaller than that of the Sun, and its brightness is 300 times less. It is located in the constellation Sagittarius, and, despite its proximity to Earth, it cannot be seen with the naked eye. The only notable thing about its height of 154 is the incredibly intense X-ray radiation it emits, which is more than that of the Sun. This can be explained by the star's relative youth, which is less than 1 billion years old. When it was formed, there were already algae on Earth, but because of its proximity to the Sun, the star is among the brightest in the sky. In addition, it has X-ray radiation and is a bit lazy and slow-moving old guy, But this doesn't negate the fact that the temperature on the surface of this star, belonging to the red dwarf Barnard, is almost 3,000 degrees. It's worth respecting at least because, due to its proximity, it has become almost a standard in studying stars of this type. It's quite difficult to study them because they are dim and heavy, but it's slightly easier to search for planets than it used to be. Peter van de Kamp announced the discovery of 2 planets orbiting Barnard's star in 1960. The first planet was similar in mass to Jupiter, while the second was only half as large. However, Peter couldn't find confirmation of his discovery, even though he tried very hard. The Hubble telescope helped to clarify that planets with a mass greater than 5 Earths cannot orbit Barnard's star. It seemed that there was no hope left, but in 2018, an international team of astronomers announced that they had found a planet about 3 times the size of Earth, orbiting Barnard's star at more than twice the distance that Earth orbits the Sun. However, despite the accuracy of the calculations, Barnard's Planet B still remains a candidate, although its existence was also confirmed in 2021. Furthermore, most astronomers give a 90% chance of potential life on a potential exoplanet. However, even if the planet is twice as close to its star as Earth is to the Sun, it will receive extremely little heat due to the coolness of the star. Sometimes the temperature on a hypothetical exoplanet is unlikely to be higher than -170 degrees. In general, the prospects for life are bleak with the other neighbors of Earth that have potential for life. However, the mighty system of Alpha Centauri, consisting of 3 stars, comes onto the scene, located about 4 light-years away from the Sun. 2 of the 3 stars in Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri B, are of great interest as they are very similar to our Sun. Alpha Centauri A shines 1.5 times brighter and is slightly larger than our Sun, while Alpha Centauri B is slightly smaller than the Sun and shines half as much. The entire Alpha Centauri system is slightly older than the Sun, and visually the 2 large stars merge into one when observed from Earth. This is not surprising since they orbit each other at an average distance of only 24 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. If the Sun were replaced with another star, in moments of closest approach, the star would be separated by a distance equal to that between the Sun and Saturn. The third member of the star system, Proxima Centauri, is a true runt. It is only 1.5 times larger than Jupiter and is a red dwarf. Even Barnard's star looks like a giant against its background. Proxima Centauri is also actively studied, but it is the 2 older sisters, Alpha Centauri A and B, that really excite scientists. They have been studied extensively, even peering into their atmospheres and finding similarities to the Sun, and conducting some of the most precise calculations of possible planetary and life presence. Many simulations were conducted and they conclusively ruled out the presence of giant planets. This is not surprising since 2 of the 3 stars are so close together, and Jupiter would face a sad fate between their gravitational influence. However, simulations showed that both stars have a so-called habitable zone, which is an orbit where theoretically stable planets with liquid water can exist. Unfortunately, due to the brightness of the stars, even taking into account the insane proximity of the Alpha Centauri system, it is difficult to say anything. In 2012, European astronomers claimed to have found an exoplanet around Alpha Centauri B, but its existence was disproved 3 years later. The situation is slightly better for the larger star, Alpha Centauri A. In February 2021, a candidate exoplanet was found there that is remarkably similar in size and orbit to Earth. It will be verified by the James Webb Telescope, and we still have yet to learn the outcome. However, the true king in this scenario is quite unexpected. In the search for life, the collapse of the Proxima Centauri system is not surprising on the one hand. As we mentioned before, it is slightly easier to find planets around dim stars. However, the exoplanet discovered there in 2016 is astonishing. It is also almost identical in size to Earth, but its year lasts only 11 days, which means it is much closer to the star. Considering that Proxima Centauri is a dim star, this is an ideal combination of factors. The exoplanet candidate receives 65% of the Earth's warmth, which theoretically opens the doors to the existence of liquid water. However, more recent calculations are less optimistic due to the proximity to the star. Potential Earth 20 receives an indecent amount of radiation, and since Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf, it periodically experiences powerful flares. For example, in 2017, a flare was recorded that, according to scientists' data, would have certainly killed the planet. All your life on a planet, even if one existed, is not so bad. There are several candidates for exoplanets in the Alpha Centauri system, some of which are also in the habitable zone. There is hope that the James Webb Telescope will help confirm or refute this data, but of course, Alpha Centauri is the main candidate for all organizations that aim for interstellar travel. There is, of course, the Project Daedalus, which aimed at the Barnard star, but this is rather an exception because scientists mostly dream about Alpha Centauri, and here dreams come up against harsh reality. Humanity has exactly one spacecraft that shows signs of life outside the solar system, Voyager 1, which was launched in 1977 and was actually designed for 5 years. It miraculously stayed on track and in 2012 entered interstellar space, but even it will not approach another star for 40,000 years, although it is not about Alpha Centauri. Voyager is heading in a different direction, as are the New Horizons and Pioneer 10 spacecraft. Their missions, like Voyager, were mainly focused on the inner part of the solar system. Specifically, nobody has sent anything to other stars yet. However, if Voyager had been turned around at the same speed and sent to Proxima Centauri, it would have reached it in 76,000 years. And mind you, this is one of the fastest spacecrafts in human history. Of course, there is also the Helios 2 probe, which was accelerated using the gravitational pull of the Sun to an indecent speed of 240,000 kilometers per hour. But even with this speed, it would take 19,000 years to travel 4 light years. There was a prototype electromagnetic engine from NASA that went even faster during testing. But even for it, it would take 13,000 years to fly to Proxima Centauri. Nuclear and thermonuclear reactor projects do not help much. They are either too dangerous, too expensive, or too slow. The laser sail technology is considered the most promising in the near future. According to this technology, a sail is deployed around the ship, just like in the old days, and solar radiation accelerates it for greater speed. This sail is pushed by lasers, and according to Robert Frisby's calculations, it could reach Alpha Centauri in 12 years. However, for this to happen, its diameter must be a paltry 320 kilometers, and the useful payload would be a canned food tin and a tennis racket. And there is also antimatter, engines powered by which can be incredibly efficient. However, the production of 1 gram of antimatter would cost several $trillion. Overall, the situation with interstellar travel is very sad. Either the necessary technologies don't exist yet, or they are just concepts, or they are too expensive, considering that interstellar travel has little practical value. It's clear that most scientists are focused on solving everyday problems. The bright spot on this background and hope for our generation is the Dragonfly project, which involves sending a very tiny sailcraft to Alpha Centauri. The goal of the project is to reach the star within 1 generation, but for now, it's just a concept. Strictly speaking, we need to study our own solar system better, and until we finally figure out Mars and potentially habitable moons of Jupiter, looking towards Sirius and Barnard star is premature.
Imagine a stationary world, ancient, about 4.5 billion years old. It is barely warmed by the sun's rays and covered with a thick layer of ice. This world is smaller than our moon, but slightly larger than Pluto. Its name is Europa, the 6th moon of Jupiter and one of the largest satellites in the solar system. But what is most interesting about this distant place is that it may harbor life. According to astronomers, Europa is considered one of the most promising places in the solar system to search for new forms of life, all because it has a vast ocean of salty water, ranging in depth from 60 to 160 ken. It is hidden beneath a layer of ice with a thickness of 16 to 30 km, but it is still potentially suitable for life. Astronomers claim that water erupts from cracks in the icy crust and is ejected, making it potentially suitable for life. Of course, reaching such a deep environment will not be easy for missions. On the other hand, scientists already have evidence that there are much smaller bodies of water, likely located much closer to the surface of the moon. They could be situated less than a kilometer beneath the ice. This news brings two positive aspects. Firstly, it increases the chances of life existing on Europa, and secondly, if true, it will make it easier for future missions to search for these life forms. The lead researcher, Riley Kohlberg, accidentally came across a presentation by a colleague who showed a photograph of double ridges on the surface of Europa. Kohlberg remembered seeing similar ridges on Earth, although they are rare on our planet. However, on Europa, they are much more abundant. Subsequent research allowed them to hypothesize that the ridges on Jupiter's moon may be the result of a specific cycle, similar to what occurs on Earth. In this cycle, liquid water freezes and then thaws inside the icy crust, which represents an environment with relatively high pressure. This causes the icy crust to move upwards, creating a two-ridge structure. At least, this is how it happens on Earth. If similar processes exist on Europa, it could indicate the presence of subsurface water. However, the temperature, pressure, and chemical composition on Europa are entirely different, and scientists still don't know how the ice behaves there. Therefore, they cannot understand the depth or size of the water pockets or the time required for freezing. However, it is clear that such a subsurface environment on Europa is likely protected from harsh radiation from Jupiter, which bombards the moon's surface. This, in turn, increases the chances of life existing in Europa's subsurface. Now we can return to the fact that the ocean on Europa appears to be salty. The red streaks on the moon's surface may have that color due to their chemical composition. Most likely, they represent a frozen mixture of water and salts. This is quite unusual because this composition does not correspond to any known substance here on Earth. As for the yellow patches on Europa's surface, they may be caused by the presence of sodium chloride. This substance is known to us as salt. Scientists have tried to recreate the conditions on Europa in the laboratory and found that by combining water, table salt, low temperatures, and high pressure, they could obtain a new form of solid crystals. This substance can exist both at the bottom of Europa's ocean and on its surface. However, apart from this information, researchers haven't been able to learn much more. We can only hope that we will find answers to some of these questions around 2030. It is around that time when the Europa Clipper mission planned by NASA may reach Europa. The mission plans to conduct several close flybys to determine whether there could be any form of life there in the next couple of years. Europa will be visited by a spacecraft from the European Space Agency. However, Europa is not the only place in the solar system where life may exist or have existed. On our planet, a large portion of this gas in the atmosphere is produced by living organisms such as methane generated by digestive processes in animals. Scientists believe that methane existed in the Martian atmosphere for about 300 years, but in 2006 it nearly disappeared, about 600 times faster than researchers had anticipated. The question remains, what or who produced this gas and where did it go? Another Martian mystery involves microbes that may be dormant beneath the surface of Mars. They could have sought refuge from cosmic radiation for millions of years. Scientists simulated conditions on Mars in laboratories to test whether this could be true, and they were amazed to discover that bacteria easily survived in such conditions for 280 million years. This means that if life existed on Mars, we could find evidence of it. Currently, Mars lacks flowing water and cells or spores would simply dry out. Additionally, the surface temperature is similar to that of dry ice. In other words, the surface is extremely inhospitable. The most likely candidates for life on Mars, if any, are bacteria-like organisms nicknamed Conan due to their rugged nature. Now let's move on to Venus. In 2020, scientists announced that something was found in its toxic atmosphere that could indicate the presence of life. Unfortunately, there was no direct evidence as there was no opportunity to collect microbial samples or capture images of extraterrestrial life. However, they claimed to have detected a chemical substance called phosphine on Venus, which is highly significant. If this gas is not formed as a result of previously unknown chemical processes, then some microbial life may be involved. Phosphine consists of 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 phosphorus atom. This gas is toxic to any terrestrial life form that requires oxygen, including us humans on our planet. Phosphine can be found in places where there is little or no oxygen, such as swamps and marshes. It is formed as a result of complex mixtures of bacteria living there. It can also be produced industrially. If we think about it, phosphine should not be present in the atmosphere of Venus at all. The formation of this gas requires specific pressure, temperature, and tons of hydrogen. It would not be surprising to find it on Saturn or Jupiter, known gas giants. On this planet, phosphine cannot form naturally, or rather, it may form in small quantities during volcanic eruptions, storms, explosions of minerals on the surface, or when meteorites enter the atmosphere. However, there cannot be as much phosphine as astronomers have calculated, and this should have raised suspicions among scientists. But they were too delighted with their discovery. Perhaps they believed that life may exist on Venus. However, even if this gas was created by some mysterious organisms, it remains a big question how they survived on Venus. On our planet, some microbes can thrive in an environment with only 5% acidity, but not more. However, Venus's clouds are composed mostly of acid, with over 90% sulfuric acid. Moreover, the atmosphere of Venus is 50 times drier than the driest place on our home planet. In fact, in 2022, thanks to high-resolution telescopes, it was concluded that there is only a very small amount of phosphine in Venus's atmosphere. So we need to look for signs.